US home sales fell again in July as housing slowdown deepens. Guys, the wheels are coming off. The bubble is starting to pop. We're finally seeing the housing market come back down to reality, basically. Like, as you know, the housing market has ballooned like crazy. We're in a crazy bubble. And you know what? When prices go up as fast as they did in the last 2 years with record low mortgage rates, we are going to have to see a pop, right? I hate to be dramatic. I hate to be like the bearer of bad news. But at the end of the day, we've seen this happen before, time and time again. You know, there's market conditions in the monetary side that just allow for people to really jump into the market, and then it creates a supply and demand issue where there's more buyers than sellers, and then people get like absolute FOMO and they start bidding above asking price. And I have no idea where people were getting so much money, but they were. And then basically they make the price of housing go up, you know, dramatically, right? Really fast. That's what just basically happened in the last year. I mean, there's some places I think Las Vegas went up by 49%, right? Since like 2019 to now. And to a lot of people, they think, hey, that's great. Great. My house is worth so much. It's great. Like the idea, if you already own a house, the idea of it is great, but it's not necessarily real. Now, yeah, if you sell your house, yeah, you at the top, yeah, you kick butt. You did really good. But remember, everybody that's sold at the top now has to move somewhere else, right? If you own the second house, for example, and you sold at the top, I would say, yeah, that's a great idea. But now you lost your house. That's your second property that you could have rented and kept it for 30, 40 years, and that, passed it down to your family. So I would say, like, yeah, sure, you made an extra $50,000, $100,000 because of the bubble. But, that $50,000, $100,000, it's good cash right now. But long-term, guys, your house is probably gonna be worth a lot more, and it's gonna give you such a bigger return over time. So the people that sold in the last 2 years, I don't blame them. They saw the prices going up. Maybe they had to move. Maybe they were changing it up, and they had to move, and it's fine. And you literally kicked ass because you sold at the top of the market. People that were buying, I do believe there's two groups of people, right? We had the single family home, like the regular people basically that want to buy a house, the families, whatever. And then you had corporations and you had rich people. You got to separate those two. I think that what ended up happening was the normal people, right, that live in the homes, like the families, whatever, they had to compete with rich people and corporations. And they have two totally different goals. The families, they want to basically buy a house and invest in their future and, raise a family and eventually, pay the house off and whatever, that situation. I think that the rich people in the corporations, their eyes they thought, holy crap, inflation is going to be through the roof. Government is printing so much money. We need to put our assets into housing, right? Because housing is a great hedge against inflation. Because when you look at other countries around the world that have had even hyperinflation, which is like crazier than inflation, but you see that people that did fare the best are the people that kept properties. Because what essentially happens is money becomes less and less valuable. And as money becomes less valuable, you got to think like objects become more valuable, and housing is one of the best objects you can have because it's a stick in the ground, right? It's a stick in the mud, and that's a big deal. So essentially, I think corporations and rich people were going up against single families, and that created a crazy scenario. I think the families could not compete with these corporations. These corporations were buying the houses without ever even seeing them. basically like a computer program, will catch a house going on the market, and they were already putting offers in. The houses were selling for a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 over asking price. And that's all great, right, for corporations to have the money or businesses and rich people. But the single family homes, when they go to the bank and they show their W-2s and they get pre-approved for a loan, and the loan, let's just say it pre-approves them for $420,000. Well, at that moment, if the house is that's their budget basically, plus their down payment, whatever. But if they are going to buy a house that goes over that, right, they have to pay that out of pocket. So not only are you putting down the down payment, but now you got to pay the price that the sellers are asking above the asking price, because the banks are not going to lend you anything above what the appraisal comes back in. And I heard situations where the sellers and the buyers were waiving appraisal. They're like, I don't care, I'm buying this house. So essentially we had, we had basically very low supply. And by the way, during coronavirus and everything shut down, well, guess what else shut down? Home builders shut down, right? So we have basically record low supply right now. We had a lot of sellers. We had these corporations wanting to jump in, and it made the price just balloon like crazy. And now what we're seeing is basically rates going way up. Now it looks like we hit the peak, right? We have inflation, and now we're probably gonna see a slowdown in the housing market. We're starting to see the cracks. All these articles are coming out. They're basically telling us, hey, we're here, we're on it. Now, it kind of sucks that we're still in August. It's supposed to be somewhat of a hot, people like to buy a house during the summer. We're going into a slowdown period. We're going into a holiday season with high inflation. Basically, what that's going to mean, products are going to be more expensive. People's money is worth less, and people are not getting the raises to combat inflation. Although there are people making more money because of the Great Resignation and employers having to raise their wages. That is happening, but now everything else is more expensive, so it balances itself out. So my prediction is we're going to see a slower growth. We're going to see slower sales come this holiday season. That is going to, basically trigger a stock market crash, and the stock market crash is going to make companies like Zillow and BlackRock and these investment companies that bought a lot of properties, their stocks are going to go down, and as a result, basically, they're going to probably unload a lot of their inventory, especially in the winter months where housing market just generally slows down as a whole because nobody likes to move during the winter because of kids being in school and whatnot. It's going to add a lot more supply, and we're probably a year from today, houses are probably going to be 20-30% cheaper in my opinion. And depending how bad the recession hits us, it could go into another year, and then we could see even lower prices come 2024. But again, it's a moving target. We can't really predict what's going to happen that far in advance right now. But I definitely do think, if you're a buyer, I would not buy right now. That's my personal opinion. But when we jump into the Redfin weekly housing market data, and you could see here the prices in 2019, they were way down here. Red is 2020, orange is 2021, and black is 2022. You see how much it jumped. An average house 4 years ago was $275,000. Now they're selling for $379, $380. So over $100,000, like 30-40% increase. And that's all, like I said, it all sounds great, right? Oh, wow, my house is worth so much. But it's not great because it basically created a bubble. And when you have a bubble like this, when it pops, it could go even below these prices right here. And that is when we get into real bad territory, because when people are underwater on their home and they're not going to pay, if you bought a house for $800,000 in this peak right here at the top of the market, and that house and the market crashes, and that house is now worth, your neighborhood is now worth $600,000, people don't like to pay their mortgage on $800,000 when they know that they could buy a house, the neighbor's house, for $600,000. So even if they could afford the mortgage, right? Even if they could afford it, they don't like to do that because they're basically throwing money away. And I don't blame them. But at the same time, they did buy at the top of the market. So we are going to have situations where people are going to say, screw it, I'm not paying my mortgage. I'm not paying my mortgage because my neighbor's house is a lot cheaper, right? And basically, you're in essence, you're throwing away money. So people walk away from the mortgage, their credit gets ruined, but they walk away from having to owe an extra $200,000 on that property. So that essentially, if it happens at a grand scale, which it might not happen at a grand scale, but if it does happen at a grand scale, that increases the supply tremendously. That's sort of what happened in '08. I don't think we're in a similar situation as '08, okay? '08 was like a housing crisis, right? It was a housing crisis. This is not, we're not in a housing crisis right now. We are in, like, I would say, like a coronavirus crisis. Coronavirus shut down the country. It freaked out the feds because all commerce stopped. The feds, to incentivize business, they went ahead and lowered the rates to 0, which then lowered the mortgage rates to like record low, historically record low rates, between 2 and 3%. Then is basically that gave a lot of free money to the economy. People were able to refinance their mortgage. People were able to borrow at incredible low cost, but at the same time, there was low inventory. So that just basically made the prices skyrocket, right? We had more buyers than sellers. But in the process, we printed a lot of money, and now we have inflation, okay? Now inflation is the biggest problem in the room. It's not necessarily about the housing market anymore. It's not about, whatever. It's all about bringing down inflation. And it's going to be painful at the end of the day. It is going to be painful, but that's what happens when you give so many people access to, very low costing money, like borrowing percentage, mortgage rates, right? When you give people extremely low rates, you're basically throwing gasoline into a fire, and that ends up burning all the wood really fast, right? And that's not good long term. It cannot sustain itself, like that. We need predictable, steady growth. That's what we need. And that is 2% inflation. 2 to 3% inflation is good. So anyways, guys, things are getting crazy. Everyone's talking about it. We see these articles coming out left and right, and things are changing by the minute, okay? Every single day there's new news coming out, and it's just getting crazy. I want to say, guys, I've been making a lot of videos, and I've been getting a lot of support from you guys. You guys are watching my videos. You guys are liking my videos. You guys are commenting on my videos, and that is awesome and really does mean a lot to me. I want to say thank you so much. If you're new to my channel, if you're new and you like what you're listening, if you like my videos, you think, have some good information and some good tips, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button and go ahead and like and leave a comment. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.